Wow. What's up, my know-it-alls? I'm going to need a minute. Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6. I don't even know where to start, man. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, you're doing the Lord's work. This was an episode that I am just unbelievably taken aback by. And it's all because of, it's everything we thought. Legitimately, it's everything we thought. And by that I mean, we had been thinking so much that, oh, well, there's no way, this and that, the other. You know, we know how last week ended. And by the way, spoilers. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to be spoiled, get off this channel right now. I don't know how to do non-spoiler stuff, so I just know how to talk about the thing that I enjoy and talk about what it meant to me. And I feel like that's one of those things that you need to understand. And if you don't want that, get out. That's your warning. Bro. Okay, if you think I was kidding, by the way, between Grogu, Luke, Ahsoka, Cobb Vanth, all the everythings. All right, let's get into it. We start with seeing the Pykes. They're doing a deal of some kind. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be spice. Money and spice is being exchanged. And that's when someone shows up out of nowhere who we haven't seen in a long time. And that's Cobb Vanth, sheriff/marshal of Mos Pelgos. And who we later on we learn they changed the name to Freetown, which I think is pretty cool. But he basically says, listen, this is my area. This is our area. If you're going to run spice through here, the answer is no. And so he basically tells them, take off, go do what you're going to do. We'll leave my place alone. And of course, they, like idiots, choose to try to pull the guns out. And what does he do? He takes out 3 of them, leaving the one guy standing. He tells the one guy flat out, he says, you need to think about this. And he tells him, just go, blah, 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 do your business. And so dude takes the spice, or dude takes the money, but leaves the spice, and then he kicks the spice over. And it's like, boom. Chapter 6, it's like, from the desert comes a stranger. Anyway, the title. And then we jump right into it. Like, Filoni doesn't even mess around. So the one thing I'm realizing very quickly, before I go any further, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni aren't stupid. They have built their own little mini kingdom within the Star Wars / Disney realm, and that little kingdom is this corner of the Star Wars world. They have taken on the mission of being our correspondence, our connection point, as in like they are us. And I mean us as in the Star Wars fan, the greater population of Star Wars fans. And they wanted to see a certain story being told. And by that I mean an era of stories. Because when you get into this, this whole thing plays out like a backdoor pilot. The same way that Ahsoka's episode in Mandalorian last season, spoilers for Mandalorian, was a backdoor pilot, in my opinion, to an Ahsoka show, which we know we're getting. This entire episode, this is more of a Boba Fett episode. I think we actually get Tamara Morrison in a scene. But it's more of an episode of Book of Boba Fett. But at the same time, the vast majority of it is, in my opinion, a backdoor pilot to a Luke Skywalker Young Jedi Temple series. And they proved they can pull it off. So I'm not going to go too much further. Let's get into this. The very next scene we get is Mandalorian. His little ship comes out of hyperdrive, and he's coming down on what looks like a large green planet. We get again the crotch cam, which I think is going to be the cam for inside the cockpit of this thing. And then of course he's flying through the little mountains and whatnot, and he lands. A little droid's there to greet him. It's R2. Yeah, totally cool. I love it. And he's basically like, hey, what's up, he's like, what's up, my friend? And so R2 kind of leads him to, he's like, I'm here to see the little guy. And R2 leads him back to where a very familiar structure is being built. I say familiar because it's the temple that we saw destroyed in, what was that, episode 6? So was that episode 6, 7, 8? Episode 8. Excuse me. Episode 8. And it's the one, it's the temple, and it's being built by all these little spider robots that are kind of climbing all over the thing in there. And so he's literally like, hey, when am I going to get to see the kid? And then so R2 talks to one of the little spider droid guys, and then next thing you know, R2 shuts off. Just shuts down, just like I'm done. And Mandalorian's like, hey, what's going on here? And you see the robots bring a couple of stones. They bring some bamboo. And they put leaves on top. And Mandalorian's like, what is a bench? How long am I going to wait? And sure enough, he sits down. They build him a little bench. They're like, here's a waiting room. Well, let's go. Okay. And then we get what we all wanted. Grogu. We get to see Baby Yoda again. Grogu. He's training, and he's sitting Indian style across from Luke Skywalker. And he looks amazing. I feel like after the public reaction to the the loosely executed, I don't want to say poorly, I think poorly is a bad word, but the loosely executed deepfake of before, and Disney was like, what? People have a problem with how we did the thing? Oh, here's all the monies. Make that look amazing. And they did. This Luke doesn't miss a beat. Oh my God. I saw no Uncanny Valley. Now, I'm sure there's going to be real picky people out there, probably in the comments eventually, who are like, you could totally Uncanny Valley, blah, blah, blah. Bro, I didn't bump into it once. And I bumped into it a bunch of times in other places, even in these shows. I didn't bump into this at all. That was Mark Hamill. I will say this, it's a performance that's a little more like, this is Luke Skywalker fully realized. It's kind of in the same vein as when he did when he rescued Grogu originally. But I feel like there's a gravitas, a weightiness to Luke's performance in terms of he's very sure. Our Luke in the past very rarely showed that. I think this reminds me of Luke when he first shows up at Jabba's palace, when they have Han in the carbonite. And so this guy fully has embraced his powers, and he's literally being the teacher. So Grogu is, of course, getting a little distracted. Luke is meditating, and Grogu notices there are these little one-eyed frogs. And so he uses the Force and goes to pull one to him. And that's when Luke is like, Grogu, really? And sure enough, he drops it. And then Luke demonstrates, oh, wait a minute. Let me show you something, buddy. Pew. And he picks up all the frogs that are in the pond. And Grogu's amazed. So as they're walking together, it's so funny because Luke's walking at his normal stride. Grogu's trying to keep up, and every so often Luke will just be like, whoosh, and Grogu will hop. It's kind of like when you're walking with your kids hand in hand, and so whoop, and so he'll just pick them up. And they're talking and whatnot. And again, it's just unreal, the work they've done. This, I don't bump into this at all. Okay, that's not true. The more I think about it, there's some scenes where you can see the face, like his face, and the nose seems like it's poorly placed. I don't know if that's right or not. Whatever. But either way, it's brilliant. The thing looks stupid amazing. And so they're talking, and finally Luke's like, do you want to remember where you came from? And so he puts his hand on his head, and it's cool. You see these little, like, force ripples. And then we get really validating prequel scene, and you see 3 Jedi defending a really young Grogu in what's probably his original kind of droid pram thing. It's really interesting to see, and they're fighting clone troopers the whole bit. And I would really love to see what would happen if Boba Fett met Grogu like legit enough for Grogu to, with his memories and everything. Anyway, whatever. So then we cut back to the Mandalorian, who wakes up. He's on his bench, and he kind of like, whoo, is ready with his gun. And there we get to see Ahsoka Tano. I was like, stop it. Ahsoka looks so good. Yeah, man. And she, of course, leads him around and shows him off and says, hey, this is going to be the temple when you Jedi will be craned and the whole thing. And she's talking to him. She's like, come on, let's talk. And she shows him. She's like, look, there he is, right there. And he's like, but I really want to see him. And she's like, look, man, what do you want to see him for you or for him? And he's like, well, he was a foundling. And she's like, maybe he's a Padawan now. And he's like, you can tell he's kind of at war. Like, well, I get the concept, I guess. Like, that means a student or something. And you can tell, it's funny. I love these actors who are doing the Mandalorian's body work because they are so good at conveying things. And so he eventually is like, all right, listen, man. He sees and he gives it some thought. And he's got to really think it through. And he decides, okay, well, then here, you give it to him. And so she says, okay. And so Grogu sees what looks like a little ship leave. And then he reaches for it. And I'm just like, I was crying this whole episode. Everything made me want to cry. And it's just beautiful and well done. And so Luke is back to teaching him some stuff, and they get back to their training and whatnot, and he asks him to jump, and he can't really jump, so he tries to instruct him a little bit on how to do some stuff. Then finally he says, here, get in the bag, let me show you something. And then Luke goes running through the woods, carrying Grogu. Sorry. Oh my God, it's the most touching thing in the world, and if you're a Star Wars fan, it's the second time Luke's carrying a little green dude on his back. And he does everything. He's running around, he's jumping, and finally he does a little flip, and it's total callback to the flip he does on Dagobah. And yeah, man, it's beautiful. And finally he goes up a tree and he shows him, he's like, look, this is, the Force and all the stuff that you can feel. It's a pretty amazing scene that really, Dave Filoni, you son of a, it's a complete love letter. This episode is both a love letter, but it's also, in my opinion, a pilot. This is what a Luke Skywalker series could be. It could be the construction of a new temple. It's finding recruits. It's and I'm sure they'll bring. This is how you bring some of that intrigue. And eventually, I'd be shocked if in a Luke series we don't get Leia, even if it's on an image of some sort or whatever. You probably could get her daughter to body player. It's great. Anyway, so Luke finally brings him back down and he says, hey, I'm gonna show you this thing. And he shows him the little training ball, the little training ball guy. And the training ball proceeds to shoot at Grogu. And next thing you know, Grogu's flipping. He's Yoda flipping everywhere. He's flipping across rivers, over stones, flipping by trees. He's just flipping, flip. It's great. It is all I ever wanted. That's when Ahsoka shows up, and Ahsoka is like, hey, so, Mandalorian showed up, and he gave him a thing, and so Luke's like, yeah, well, it's going to be rough. So, and she's like, I know. And so she goes to leave, and he's like, am I ever going to see you again? And she goes, we'll see. Who knows? Earlier she had said, hey, I'm a friend of the family. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So what I really want, they purposely show us this scene where her and Luke are already very, very comfortable with one another. But I need to see the scene where Luke and her meet for the first time. And she tells him about his dad. Because she does say at one point, so like your father. And I'm just like, oh. It's so good. I'm hitting my chest because I'm like, why are you hurting me? Why are you doing this? Anyways, it's brilliant. Finally, however, we get back to Tatooine and back to Boba Fett's palace. That's right. And of course, the little pig guy's there to meet, and he's like, "Hey, Fennec Shan sent for me," and the Mandalorian gets taken to a little meeting. So they're all there. This is the first time you get to see Boba Fett in his series in 2 episodes, and they're going through the plan. They're like, "This is what we got to do," and they're like, "We need more muscle." Between Black Chrysanthemum, the mods, and now Mando, we have enough experience to sort of lead this thing, but we need foot soldiers. So the Mandalorian's like, I think I might have that under control, and he flies around. What's really cool is you get to see these Jawas who are flying around with this, who are driving around, and they have the giant, the dragon, that sand dragon, the big giant sandworm thing. They have the dragon skull on top of their. It's huge. The thing takes up almost the whole ship. And eventually, Mandalorian, he goes back to Los Pelgos, and he gets to see the Cobb Vanth, the sheriff, who has a deputy, and the deputy's all spit and vinegar. It's really funny. Anyways, and so he basically sits him down and says, "Look, man," in the bar, and by the way, in the bar, the entire framework of the bar is the rib cage of that big giant worm thing. So it's like, all right, I see what y'all are doing. Anyways, it's good stuff, man. And so they're talking, and eventually, as the bartender's like, that sounds like city folk problems, and blah blah blah. And even Mandalorian leaves, and Cobb Vanth's like, all right, listen, we're going to go ahead and let's call the town together and let's have a conversation. And so, but before they can start sort of do all that, excuse me, a stranger out of the desert comes a stranger. And it's this guy walks straight out of a Clint Eastwood movie, kind of an alien Clint Eastwood movie. And he basically says, listen, we're going to double whatever Boba Fett's offering you. Or no, we'll match whatever Boba Fett's offering you. And the deputy's like, the marshal ain't for sale. And Cobb Vanth's like, bro, I can answer for myself. Do you mind? Dude lifts up his head. He's got a big old cowboy hat on. He's got these little breather things, and he's an incredibly scary man. And sure enough, there's a bit of a shootout, and he dispatches with Cobb Vanth and the deputy. So yeah, man. And then he basically tells the people, listen, the townspeople are all in the doorway of the bar, and he says, listen, so long as the spice runs with no issue, the syndicate don't care about you guys. Everyone will be left alone. That's it. Let us run our spice. Do whatever the heck you want. Then we get back to the little casino bar place that we've been seeing. And 2 Pike guys walk in. They have another one of those money deals. They put it on the counter. The Twi'lek, male and female Twi'lek people come up and are like, hey, can we have your helmet to clean it? And they're like, no, we're good. And then they walk out and they leave their little money thing. Boom. Big explosion. The Pykes have clearly made their move. We then cut back. And this is probably this is both the sweetest and saddest scene ever. Because you can already clearly see the early mistakes Luke is making. I say mistakes, but the truth is just because we don't want this choice to have to be made. Anyway, so it's Luke and Grogu sitting together. They're inside the newly constructed, completed temple deal. And sure enough, bro, Luke opens up the package and he says the Mandalorian wanted you to have this. And it's exactly what we thought. It's a little Beskar chainmail shirt. But then he says, so you have a choice. You can have that. Or, and he takes out a tiny lightsaber. It's the Yoda saber. And he says, this used to belong to my master. Or my master who taught me. And he says to him, you got to make a choice, kid. And if you choose this, you choose the Beskar armor, you can go on and be with the Mandalorian. But if you choose this, you'll be the first student in this temple, and I will make you a legendary Jedi. And he tells him, because you got to remember, and you probably won't ever see the Mandalorian again. because a short time for you is a lifetime for others. And I was just blown away. Obviously, let's go know-it-all index. 10 out of 10. No question. 10 out of 10. This definitely sets the stage. I think we have enough set up here for a Luke show. I want to see that. The other thing is, you got to see a whole new musical palette. So it isn't just that they're showing you the show, but they're showing you the music of the show. They're showing you the setting of the show. With that whole bamboo forest deal, that's going to be, and I think legitimately, I don't know what Grogu's going to pick or not, and that because as soon, of course, they cut right there at that choice, and yeah, man, it's a great episode, 10 out of 10 for sure. I'm excited. So there you go. Now you know, and if knowing is half the battle, then you're halfway to being the know-it-all that you want to be. So I'm telling you, man, yeah, chapter 6, let's do this. We're heading toward the end. Be here next week. Like, subscribe, click that little bell icon so that you can get notified when new content drops. Yeah, man, that's a great episode. Thanks so much for joining me. Listen, the like part is actually really important. That sort of helps the algorithm. But then, of course, subscribe and, of course, share the show. Would love to get more people on board on the bandwagon here. I think I built a pretty nice product, and we'll see what's up. So I'm looking to do some more fun stuff, hopefully with Star Trek. Continuing, of course, Image Comics 30th anniversary. So check out those videos. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. So don't forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.